Yeah, we have a couple of minutes.
So, yeah, we can start.
Yeah, let even start in LinkedIn also. You can. Is it live?
Yes. Yes, it is live, sir.
Okay. Okay. We can start. Okay. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a global strategy, global supply chain webinar series. So today we talk about global supply chain risk management, which is very important, relevant, and also it's a contemporary. Okay. So let us take a couple of minutes so people let the participants join. Then we will take a deep dive into that. Okay. So prior to that, let me share my screen, uh, ladies and gentlemen. Let me share my screen. Yeah, I hope you are able to see it. Yeah. Jyoti, just confirm if it is visible. Yeah. So is it visible, Jyoti, my screen?
Yes, it is visible, sir. You can proceed now.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Global Supply Chain Webinar Series, webinar number 11. Today, we talk about global supply chain risk management from disruption to action. So, we talk about a framework for organizations. So, how can they do assessment and also they can plan uh, supply chain risk management? So, this is what we discussed today. So let me give a quick round of introduction about myself. I'm Sheikh Abdul Khader, CEO of Data Labs India. So I'm expert. I spent a lot of time in supply chain and strategy management. So today I'm going to share supply chain risk management details in the session today. Uh, so So what we discussed today is in the global supply chain risk management webinar. See, we try to talk about. Let me just put a pointer here. So we talk about understanding the landscape of global supply chain risk. We talk about a solution framework, a step-by-step approach. What any large mid-size organization they should do for the risk management. And then how to use those templates and toolkits to do the supply chain risk management. So this is the topic for today. So what we do is let us try to understand. If you have any questions, we can post the questions. Please note this webinar is. Let me just check my voice. Is the voice is very clear, Jyoti? Just to confirm from
So little bit closer. Will you please?
wait
Yeah,
one
little.
second. So let me just check with the audio. What is the audio it is taking up? No, it is. Now, can you tell me now? How is it? How is it now, Jyoti? Need to give me feedback, Jyoti. Hello.
Sir, now it is audible, sir. Clearly. Yeah, you can. You can use this.
Is it very clear? Is
Yeah,
it clear?
yeah, clear, very clear.
Fine. And also, please confirm the screen visibility. Yeah.
Yeah, it is visible and it is in landscape mode. Yeah, second.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. So let us start, ladies and gentlemen. Today's work, the webinar, Global Supply Chain Risk Management from Disruption to Action, a practical framework for organizations. So what we talk today is understanding of supply chain risk landscape, the solution framework, a step-by-step approach, and templates and some toolkits. So this is very intensive webinar. I don't think we'll have a lot of time to spend about it because it is scheduled for 1 hour. So let us try to do as much as possible, and then if you have any questions, we'll take up at the end. Usually, if there is a specific question, yes, you can post it. Okay, but you may post the question, Jyoti. Okay. So let us start with the part one. Understand the landscape. Okay. So why global supply chains are vulnerable today? So we have to understand what is happening. Shift from efficiency-driven supply chains to uh, shift from efficiency-driven to disruption-prone systems. So we have efficiency at one side and then disruption on another side. So let us understand how does that work, how does that happening, and set the context of risk awareness, decision making. Okay. So what is reality now? If you talk about reality, for last maybe 20, 30 years, low cost. So any supply chain is optimized basically for low cost. Okay. And then to do that, you have like a just in time, single sourcing, lean inventory, all those concepts are target towards primarily low cost. It is not the only thing, but it is uh, you need the charger. You need the charger. Yeah, take it. So today, what is happening? We have a term called permacrisis, a continuous overlapping of disruptions, the permanent crisis, basically. Is the resilience, ability to absorb, recover, and adopt. Okay. The highlight is the cheapest supply chain is no longer the best. The most, the cheapest supply chain is no longer the best. The most resilient one is. So this is the foundation to start our discussion today. Okay. So how these supply chain metrics have shifted pre 2020 to current reality? What is going on? So inventory turnover shifted to strategic buffer stocks, single sourcing to multi sourcing, 95% of on time deliveries to 80 to 85 to 90 realistic percentage of on time deliveries. Okay. 30 to 45 day lead times, 90 to 60 to 90 days lead times, including buffers. So lowest unit cost to total cost of resilience. So this is the shift happening in the supply chain metrics today. Okay. So now, so what are the top five supply chain disruptions? This is very important. Now you can, if you can see, so what is happening now? You see the geopolitical, like wars, sanctions, tariffs. Okay, these are all like the most important supply chain disruptions. What is happening? We are all witnessing like route closures, shortages, kind of thing. Climate, floods and droughts. The health, pandemics. The cyber attacks, and then infrastructure like strikes and other disturbances. So these are like some of very prominent supply chain disruptions nowadays. So if you are doing any supply chain framework for risk management, so it has to address all these. Okay. So recent disruptions, what happened? If you see for last 3 4 years, so there is a COVID. So we all know what is going on with the COVID.
and then we have a Russia-Ukraine war, then we have a Panama Canal drought, then West Asia crisis, 2024, and then we have West Asia war, which is a recent one, which is happening. Still, there is a lot of uncertainty. So there is a lot of disruptions happening. So these are all the top five. Okay. So now let us, before we jump into the global supply chains, let us talk about most dangerous choke points. Okay, so Strait of Hormuz, I'm sure everybody knows about this now. Bab al Mandib, Red Sea, where like a 20, here it is around 20% and 12%. These together like a 33, 34% of the transport, the global trade happens. Suez Canal, Panama, and then Strait of Malacca. So all these are a very dangerous choke points. There are a few more, but these are the most dangerous choke points. If you see here, so if you see the Saudi Arabia, so UAE, Oman, here we have a Strait of Hormuz, Hormuz here, and then Bab al Mandi. So these two choke points are created a big problem across the globe now. Everybody has directly or indirectly affected with this. Okay, so this is especially if you see this diagram, is the Strait of Hormuz, where it has much more impact across the globe for the global supply chain. Strait of Malacca, it's near, it's going between Malaysia and Singapore. If you see this, okay, and this is supplying the rest of the east part. So now there are two more choke points. One is Panama. Panama is here. If I have a pen to write it, Panama is here, and then Suez Canal is here. Okay, and of course, when I talk about Strait of Hormuz somewhere here, Bab al Mandib is here, and then Malacca is here. Okay. So these are all the top dangerous choke points across the globe. Okay. Now, apart from global disturbances, so you have a tremendous disturbances locally, domestic disturbances, like you have when you talk about the truckers, when you talk about the South Korea truckers in 2022, China, COVID, you have the Germany strikes, port strikes. You have witnessed this in India also, internal checkpost delays. Likewise, you have within the country also, we have a lot of domestic supply chain disruptions. If you combine these domestic supply chain disturbances to the global supply chain disturbances, and you will end up definitely into a big problem. You see here, a container sails smoothly from Shanghai to Rotterdam, but if German truckers strike for 10 days, that container never leaves the port. That's how it is. Okay, so which industries took a big hit? Okay, so if you talk about industries which took big hit, is like, if you see here like a six industries. Automotive, the semiconductor shortage. Okay, there are many plants got closed because of this. Electronics, single source of components, then lead time got extended indefinitely. Pharma, so API concentration, so drug shortages. Retail, like inventory will be effect kind of stockouts. Energy, choke point closures. This is now, which is one of the, everybody understand what it is. And then food. So some export bans, inflations kind of thing. So these are all some industries which got affected. Okay, so if you talk about one industry, so what is the effect it has done is like, for example, just in time with 2 to 4 hours inventory, they used to follow. Okay, 70% of semiconductors are coming from Taiwan, Korea, and China. And then single source dependencies. Though it has created a big gap in the recent impacts, if you see these numbers. Okay. So what I'm going to tell is, to solve this supply chain resilience thing, so you have to do something differently. Okay, that we are going to talk today. So this is part one. Okay, so this is a part one of the introduction part of understanding the global supply chain, the landscape. Now let us talk about the solution framework. This is very important. Okay. So before we talk about supply chain solution framework, there are 6 levers which affect supply chain risk. So we need to understand these 6 levers. Okay. So what are those 6 levers? Are these? So lever number one is lead time buffers. Okay. So how the time between order and receipt. So lead time buffer is one receipt, one lever. Multi-sourcing, number and location of your suppliers. Inventory positioning. So where in the supply chain you want to keep your safety stocks or whatever, cycle stocks or whatever. So where you want to keep. Capacity flexibility. So how what is your overall supply chain and manufacturing distribution capacities? Supplier scoring. So how you are really evaluating your suppliers? Is it only a total cost or it is a total cost of resilience? So how this, and then logistics mode diversification. So these are all the six levers which we need to understand. So I'll just spend few minutes on this and each lever. Then we'll go to the solution framework. When you take one, the the lever number one, lead time buffers. Okay, excuse me. So lead time usually is most underestimated supply chain risk. So you talk to any company, majority of companies, there are some companies they manage and the supply chain very well. They just put 30 days, 60 days, 15 days, 45 days. They really very rarely they do a proper lead time assessments and calculations. So, so this is one of the important and lean practices collapse these buffers over decades. So lean practices created a big problem. So what is the old thinking is minimize the lead time to reduce the inventory cost. That is a priority so far. The new thinking is build strategic lead time buffers to absorb shocks. So this is where the companies are should think or they are thinking about this framework. So lead time to buffer ties. Okay, this is so. If we talk about little detail, so what are the lead time buffer tires? So we have operational buffer for 1 to 3 days, a tactical buffer for 5 to 10 days for unknown risks, then strategic buffer where black swan events like wars, canal closures, pandemic kind of thing. So 15 to 30 days. So this is how you need to have a the lead time uh, buffer tires. Okay, so this is just. Then the second one is the multi-sourcing. Now traditionally people are going towards single sourcing for the lean and other things, but now uh, to manage risks, so we need to go for multi sourcing. Okay, so what is it? The number, location and relationship structure of your suppliers for each critical components. The old thinking is single sourcing for volume leverage and lower cost. The new thinking is at least you need to have a minimum 2 to 3 vendors or suppliers for critical components, preferably in a different geographical risk zones. So this is lever number two. So if you talk about in details, so level one, level two, level three, level four, level five maturity for multi sourcing. So you can have so if level five means like a triple source, you have three in-house backup also is there. And then this is a overall risk, lowest risk, but it is expensive. So we need to to have a trade-off. So what is it you are looking for? What is it required for your company? So if your primary supplier disappears tomorrow, how long to qualify and ramp up your secondary supplier? This is one key metric. You can do that. So this is a multi-sourcing maturity. Inventory positioning. So where you want to keep your inventory, that is very, very important. Yeah, okay, so the old thinking is centralized inventory, lowest cost, higher efficiency. The new thinking is decentralized inventory for higher resilience and faster response. Okay, so this, if you talk about inventory positioning, Okay, so you see here model centralized, one large warehouse, regional hubs, 3 to 5 warehouses near key markets, supplier health buffers. So you can ask your suppliers also to keep some buffers with them. Hybrid. Okay, so usually the hybrid one, you design your hybrid inventory positioning in such a way that any kind of risk can be managed or eliminated through that. So capacity, the lever number 4 is the capacity flexibility. Okay, so traditionally high utilization, all the manufacturing and logistic companies, they push for high utilization because it's a more profitable, what kind of whatever. But high utilization is the enemy of resilience. So what is your main idea now is to have the supply chain resilience is one of the main expectation or main requirement. If you are going for high utilization, then you will have a problem with the resilience. Okay. So what is the bold thinking is run at 90-95% capacity utilization. That is you will never reach that. Usually the capacity utilization will be around 80-85%. But the new is you keep deliberately some 15-20% capacity to take care of that resilience part. So this is the lever number 4. So when you talk about capacity flexibility mechanisms, so suppliers surge clauses, so you put the in contractual rights. Okay, so if there is any issue with the supply, then you have a contractual agreement in such a way that supplier keep some capacity flexibilities. So multi-plant redundancies, some component made in 2+ of your own factories, capital intensive but very powerful. So logistics spot market access. So in case you have big major issues with the freight forwarders or kind of thing, you should be able to get them very easily. Okay, pre-negotiated rates for such surge. So temporary labor agreements, like you have a contracts with staffing agencies kind of thing. So the key metric is time to increase capacity by 30%. So measure this for each critical node. Okay. So this is like a capacity flexibility mechanism. It's a lever number 4. So lever number 5 is total cost of resilience. So what it is, basically a supplier evaluation model that includes cost plus risk factors, not just purchase price. So purchase price plus some other. So total cost of resilience is one of the most important metric at this point of time. The problem with the traditional scoring is you are optimized for unit price, we ignore the disruption cost. Okay. So disruption is not necessary. We should not think that disruption is what happens once in a while, and we should not plan for that. You should not think like that because sometimes what happens is these disruptions make your business irrelevant because some competitor might use this as an entry point and then kill your value proposition. So this is very important that your supply chain needs to be resilient. So what is the total cost of resilience? The components. There could be one or this is like a classical uh, components, but there could be more. Okay. So you have like a purchase price, you have a logistics cost, risk premium, buffer inventory cost, qualification cost, and geopolitical risk score. So these are all some components. So if the formula like a total cost of resilience, so you can do that very easily. You can do that. Okay. So final lever, sixth lever is the logistics mode. So you need to diversify the logistics mode so that you don't have at least you can minimize supply chain risks. So old thinking is ocean is the cheapest, use air only for emergencies. So pre-plan mode shifts as part of the risk playbooks. So if you have already defined, if this happens, so this is the action I'm going to take, then you would have already prepared for that. So prepared means there may be some necessary contracts, there could be some readiness as a management process, and there will be buffer allocated for that. Maybe it's a budget or whatever. Okay, so this is six levers. So when you make the mode logistics more diversification, so it could be like ocean, rail, combination. So primary mode, you can have a backup. Okay, so and what is the lead time impact? You need to have this. You need to have this matrix with you, because for each choke point, wherever you have your supply chain is affected, so you need to have supply chain primary mode and backup mode for the diversification. Okay. So this is part two. So we talk about technologies. So what are the technologies we need to know in the as part of part two? So for at least there are many technologies, but at least you should be aware of these. So real-time visibility platforms like control towers. So know where is your shipments and what are your disruption mean. Here, when you talk about control tower, so we have some more details about that. I talk about that. So this is a real-time visibility platforms like control towers, predictive analytics and digital twins. This is number two. Supplier risk intelligence platforms. Okay, so you can have, there are some supplier risk intelligence platforms, and then you have a blockchain for multi-party documentation to make the process much easier. So these are all some four technology that I would like to introduce to you. Okay, so when you talk about control tower, okay, so the question is, you have is your you have the visibility of your order, your inventory, your shipments, and then you capacities. So what is the capacities? And then you have a lead time visibilities. So this does not happen just like that. So you need to really have a proper supply chain control tower to do this. So usually organizations think this is supply chain control tower is a nice to have, so they don't go for it. But the investment what you make brings you discipline of monitoring your supply chain, either it is for operations or for the risk control, whatever. Okay. So if you have, so do you cover your ocean, air, rail, and truck multimodal visibility, real time versus batch, AI based, not just scheduling, avoid siloed data. So these are all like a, some components of supply chain control tower. Okay. Next is the predictive analytics and digital twins. So this is very important to have a predictive analytics now with AI, so you can do much better. So based on the data available, political scenarios, whatever, so you can do some kind of predictions, whether it could be a choke point closure, supplier failure, or a demand spike, port strike kind of thing. So you can do a proper predictive analytics based on the scenarios. Okay. Then uh, and digital twins tell you what is happening at any given point of time. You can do the simulations through digital twins. So this is one thing which you can definitely think about it. So technology is supplier risk intelligence. This is very important when you are talking about a global supply chain risk. So supplier risk intelligence means what is his credit ratings, what is his financial distress, what is his geopolitical capabilities, what is the operational capabilities, compliance, everything. You have some publicly available data sources. So with this, you can also do a supplier risk intelligence properly. So this is like six levers we talk about. Now we talk about six steps process. So six-step process where we talk about supply chain risk. So these are all the six steps. So I'm going to brief you one by one. If there is any questions, please post, Jyoti. Otherwise, we'll just try to conclude and then we'll take up questions at the end. Okay. So six-step process is like identify risk across end-to-end supply chain. This is step number one. Identify risks across your end-to-end supply chain. How to do that, I will tell you. Assess and prioritize risks, likelihood and impact. So all those risks, whatever you have identified in step number one, assess and prioritize them. Step number three is diagnose the vulnerabilities for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 supply chain partners. Then select mitigation strategies for top risks. So for the selected risks, you mitigate them. Okay. So those top risks mitigation strategies you try to implement and monitor KPIs. This is step number 5. And then review, upgrade quarterly. So this is, and supply chain risk management is not a one-time job. It needs to monitor at least once in a quarter what is going on. So this is the 6-step approach. I'll talk about one after another. Very, very simple. Okay. So step number 1 is, first of all, identify risk. Okay. So for each node in supply chain, okay, so for each node, so what we need to do in this is create a complete map of your end-to-end supply chain. That is the step number 1. First, you draw your supply chain, identify what are supply chain nodes and links properly, and what are the nodes involved in this. Either it could be port entry, or port exit, or warehouse, customer, custom clearance, what else? Complete supply chain need to be plotted properly. And then you identify risks at each supply chain node and supply chain risk. So this is a step number 1. How does it look like is, this is step number 1. I give you the example in the next part. The step number 2 is risk assessment and prioritization. So all the identified risks in step number 1, what you do is you identify whether it is a likelihood, give 1 to 5. So 5 is highly likelihood and 1 is low. And impact. So low impact is 1, high impact is 5. So then likelihood and impact will be your score. Okay. Then based on that score criteria, if it is a 15 to 25, so act immediately. 10 to 14, plan within 30 days. 5 to 9, monitor quarterly. 1 to 9, accept it. Okay. So, or issue, whatever. Okay. So this is the so you need to how to prioritize supply chain risk. So you have the likelihood and impact. Then third step is diagnose the vulnerabilities. So the multi-tier supply chains can be diagnosed vulnerabilities where it can go wrong. So there are some typical questions you need to ask. For example, who are your top 3 suppliers? What countries are they located in? Do you have alternative sources for every key raw materials? What kind of current lead time? What is your current lead time? Do you hold safety stock? If yes, how much? So these are all some key questions you need to really ask yourself, so that we come up with a diagnosis of all those vulnerabilities. Okay. Then you have you need to have a plan for the mitigation strategies. So mitigation strategies includes whatever. So first of all, you identify risks, give the priority, and then you identify the mitigation. So it could be elimination of risk. For example, here if you see, for each critical risks, can we eliminate the risks? So it could be dual source. Making another source can help you to do the elimination. Can we reduce it? So buffer inventory. Can we transfer the risk, like through insurance or whatever? Or do we accept it, like low likelihood and impact? So this is very important. Supply chain risk management strategies what you will have. Then based on that, you identify what is it you are taking up. So what is it what is a risk mitigation strategy you are taking up. So this is very important. So step number 5 is implement it. Whatever identified the risk mitigation strategies. Okay, so implement that, and then monitor KPIs. For example, okay, so there could be weekly meetings, operational team reviews, dashboards, monthly reviews, quarterly reviews. You need to do it. Okay, and this supply chain risk also should be part of it. And if there is any crisis, there could be some ad hoc meetings also, and there should be a dashboards to do that. So a very simple dashboards. So you identify some key performance indicators to address supply chain risks, like supplier on-time delivery, lead time variance. Okay, this will tell you what is going on in the supply chain. Inventory buffer coverage, risk scores, tier 2 mapping. Okay, usually what happens is we take care of the tier 1 and we leave tier 2 or maybe tier 3. Okay, at least you need to really have a visibility up to tier 2 level. Okay. Then the step number 6 is review and update quarterly. So you will have a review meetings every quarter. So what is going on in your supply chain risks? Identify new risks if there is something. What is your supplier health? What is your mitigation progress going on? What is KPI performance? Lessons learned. So this is the step 1 to step 6. How we go through all these steps in place. Okay. So, what is the action plan for next 90 days for your organization is like this. So, days 1 to 30, do the assessment and mapping, like a complete risk mapping for top 20 SKUs and components. Score risk like likelihood and impact. Identify top 5 critical risks. Send tier 1 suppliers questionnaires. This is very important. I'll talk about in the next slide, coming slides in the part 3. We talk about it. Okay, so we talk more details what to do. In day 31 to 60, the second month, so you select mitigation strategies for top 5 risks. So begin dual sourcing or whatever for the higher risk components. So implement weekly KPI dashboards, KPIs. Negotiate surge clauses with key vendors or suppliers. So this is second month. Third month is execute, qualify first alternative suppliers, adjust inventory. This is an example. This two. That will be the action items in month 1, month 2, month 3, or 30 days, 30 days, 30 days is based on your organization. So adjust inventory buffers based on the risk scores and run first quarter risk reviews and document lessons. This is how you should plan. Okay, so this is the end of part 2. Okay, so I will be talking about what we have talked about, 6 fundamental levers. So lead time, okay, the capacities and all that levers. Technology enablers, control towers, digital twins, and analytics. 6-step approach with the templates, and then your 90 days action plan. So this is what we have covered in part 2. Okay, so now this will be like elaborated ones. In part 3, we talk about templates, case studies, and some questions, frequently asked questions. Okay. I'll just take a pause here. So these templates, case studies, and toolkits, if we talk about, so let us do that. Okay, so I'll just talk about some toolkits here, how you can be, you can do it. Okay, so let us do that. The first thing is end-to-end supply chain risk map. So this is a one template where you have to use. So this template so this is in the step 1 of your 6-step process. So where a supply chain node, okay, so you identify nodes. For example, raw material supplier, component supplier, manufacturing plant, warehousing or warehouse or a distribution center, port of exit, ocean or air carrier, port of entry, a DC, a last mile carrier, customer delivery. So this is your supply chain nodes. They could be links also. Okay, so you identify, you give the names properly and which city or which whatever region. So is it a tier 1 or a tier 2, whatever. So I mean, this is very high level. It could be in real time, it could go, it will increase. So maybe this is for each product you need to do it. Okay, at least for each product or product group, you need to do. First, you need to map this. So then what happens is, second is, you identify the risk. Okay, in the step number 1, what you do is you identify the risks. So as part of that, you map supply chain. First, for each node, you identify what are the risks involved. So this is the template: node ID, a risk category, specific risk, and what is the likelihood and impact. So you quantify that also, and what is your current mitigation if you are using it. So this is the template will give you. So once you map your supply chain, then you identify the nodes, what are the risks there, what is likelihood and impact, and maybe overall score, the current mitigation plan. If there is anything already you're doing it, maybe sometimes you might be already doing it, so you put that. So this is step one template, which is very important. The second is supplier risk assessment questionnaire. So you need to really assess your vendors or suppliers. So how do you do that? So this is a template you can use. So you ask them, what is your supplier, primary address, number of manufacturing sites, location of all manufacturing sites, other things, other commercials kind of thing. So once we get this, then there is a next template. So you get them the next main key questions, which is like a 5, 6 critical questions like geographic and geopolitical risks. So for this supplier, so for geographic and geopolitical, so there are some questions you can ask them, and it is very important. Nobody will tell this. Okay, so all your manufacturing sites are in one country. If your vendor say yes, that means if that country has a problem, then your supply chain has a problem. Likewise. So have you experienced any disruption due to local events within the country? You have any issues? Okay. So for last 3 years, you have anything like that? So do you have any contingency plans for political instability? So what is your primary power source, like a grid or backup or whatever? So likewise, so this is one question, set of questions you ask your vendor, your supplier. The second is multi-tier visibility. So who are your top 3 vendors, top 3 suppliers? Like it's a tier 2. Okay. Do you have an alternate source? Have you ever experienced disruption from tier 2 supplier? So what is your average lead time from order to shipment? So where do you hold the safety stocks? So this is multi-tier visibility for your supplier. Then operational resilience. So do you have your documented business continuity plans? What is your business continuity plan last tested? So you need to do some stress test here and there. So what is it you have done? So do you have a redundant production lines for this? So what percentage of your workforce is temporary or contracted? Likewise. So these are top 3 questions, and then the fourth and fifth, like financial health. So how does that your overall financial health take up for your tier 1 supplier? Okay. So if you had any payment delays from major customers, so payment delays from customers is a critical thing. It is not something very healthy. So if your customers are delaying payment, that means your cash flow has a problem. Okay. Then the fifth one is the logistics and shipping. So which ports do you typically use for export, and what are the multimodal transports you want to use it? Likewise. So these are the like top 5 questions you need to ask. Then these questions, all these 5 questions, you need to put them into a matrix. Okay, so you score for each criteria like a geographic risks. So you give weightage is 20 points. So give them each question. There are points, so you can give them. Okay. Likewise, so multi-tier dependencies, operational resilience, financial health, logistics. No, you allocate some points for that. So now these points you combine them all together, then you create a score here. Okay, if this score is coming something like this, low, medium, high, and critical, so you have to monitor. There is a recommended actions for that, like monitoring quarterly revenue, review annually, kind of thing. If risk level is very low, no problem. Okay, if this is very high, so immediate action is required. You need to do that. Okay, so if you complete a particular scorecard for your vendors or suppliers, it looks like this. Okay, so you have like a medium, high. So this is where you identify them. So you can do this in a simple Excel file kind of thing. Now the template number 4, what I ask you is like for tier 2 and tier 3 dependency tracker. So you can identify a component. So tier 1 supplier, tier 2, and tier 3. So for critical components, you put all tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. and then you identify the risks, the key risks. You don't have to put all the materials, all the components here, all the key raw materials kind of thing. It's uh, very risk prone materials where you have shortages kind of thing, or you can eliminate some of them. Okay, so then you take actions. So like, so in supply chain, it is not enough only to look at your tier one. So if the tier one is there, tier two, tier three, you need to really look into it from the supply chain risk point of view. Okay, so uh, if you see here, uh, if you see a supply concentration risk flags, so you can identify the key flags in overall risk. Then it will tell you, it will give you a good idea that what is it you are going to do. So, like for example, select top 20 components by spend or criticality. Request Tier 1 supplier to complete Tier 2, Tier 3 questionnaire. Fill the table. So highlight the concentration of risks, and then you have the findings. You can present the findings. Okay. Template number 5 is risk scoring matrix. So how do you score? Okay. So you can have likelihood and impact, or as what you did. So like what is the, like a 1 to 5 in the scale, like a rare, unlikely, possible, likely, and almost certain. So you can see that 1 to 5. Then you can, for all each activity or each impact, so you can see here. So if it's a financial impact, okay, so you can have a scores. So here, like, what is the meaning of score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? It is explained here. Okay. So for each risk ID, you can give scoring like this. So risk description here. Okay. Likelihood, impact, total score, priority level. So this is very important, and it looks very simple, very basic, very easy to understand, but giving the score is a criticality. Okay, so you need to really know how to give the particular proper score. So putting score itself help you to understand what is happening. If you come to know that there is a high risk, high impact, high likelihood, so you definitely you come up with a very high score like this. Okay, then you have to take actions for that. So you have a plot 2 by 2 matrix. So impact and likelihood very high. Then whatever this one, high impact and high likelihood, these are the very critical ones. Okay, so these are the critical ones. Mitigation and action plan. Okay, so this is the template where you have a mitigation action plans. Like you have a risk IDs here, risk descriptions and mitigation strategies. Okay, risk actions here. So you have owners, due dates and status, budget requirements. So you need to have your action plan for this. Okay. So mitigation strategy menu for reference. Okay. Now risk type, the single source supplier, what is it? Like you have complete summary of what is it you're going to do. Okay. So like risk types and what is your strategies, like your dictionary, and then uh, what is the started. Okay. So what is your action, whether you started or to be started or whatever, likewise. So this is one more template, weekly risk KPI dashboards. So you identify some key performance indicators for supply chain risks, and then you keep target, actual, status, and then this trend will tell you a lot of things. It will tell you what is going on and the action if read. Okay, and then owners. So this risk KPI dashboards is mandatory as part of your overall supply chain reviews. It could be sales and operations plan. It could be weekly reviews. Okay, but you need to have a weekly KPI dashboard. Okay, this is on case study. So when you talk about automotive semiconductor crisis, so this is one example where you can talk about you can do that, like identify, assess, diagnose, mitigate, and monitor, review. So these are the actions taken. How do they apply it? 6-step approach. Okay. So map all components with semiconductor content on 23 SKUs, depend on 2 chips. Like score chip shortage as likelihood and impact. Then trace tier 2. Okay, then discover single country concentration. Three actions: qualified second fab in Germany, held 8 weeks buffer stock, kind of thing. So created weekly dashboard, quarterly risk reviews. So this is one use case, one sample. Similarly, okay, so if you see that and continue, okay, so then you will have a single source components 23. So after is 6. So you will reduce single source components so that you have overall reduction in your supply chain risk. Okay, so takeaway is do not assume tier 1 suppliers manage tier 2 risks also. This is one thing. So buffer stock is expensive but cheaper than shutdowns. So redesign is a valid mitigation. So changing product design to use alternative chips took 9 months but permanently reduced this. So this is one sample. Likewise, so one retailer who is doing a Red Sea rerouting. Okay, so they follow the 6-step approach. Okay, so this it's like already had a risk map from prior, yeah. So within 48 hours, so what is the Red Sea closure likelihood? So analyze SKUs kind of thing. So you have all the steps. Then finally you take the rapid response. So predefined playbook matters. Air freight, rail is underused alternative. Yeah. And then pharma. So pharma also the 6-step approach you have done some cases like this. So especially in the COVID lockdown scenarios. So you have, and I think this is one of the major, everybody knows every supply chain. So pharma supply chain worked very nicely during the COVID. Okay, so they have applied all those supply chain risk mitigation techniques. So, so there are some frequently asked questions. Maybe you have questions like, we are small company with limited budget. How do we start? Okay, so likewise, start with 20%. That gives you 80% protection. So you don't have to do complete supply chain risk management process, but you need to do for top 20% critical materials so that you are covered 80%. Likewise, the second question is, my leadership only cares about cost. How do I sell resilience? If you are a supply chain manager, okay, so and your leadership does not really worry about supply chain risks, so it is your duty to educate them. Okay, so here the answer is do not sell resilience, sell avoid loss, translate risk into money. So you quantify. So if you have a lost sales or whatever, so you quantify and then tell them that uh, doing this kind of change will do that. Okay, so this much your loss kind of thing. This will help you. So there are some questions like that. How much inventory buffer is too much? Okay, so there is no one answer for this. So you need to really plan, and it's not static. Also, it's not that you do it one time. Many organizations they calculate safety stock like 15 days stock, 30 days stock, 45 days stock kind of thing, but that is actually wrong. Okay, so you need to really calculate your safety stocks very regularly, and also you need to be that has to be very dynamic, and it should be a part of your supply chain planning process. Okay, the how do I get my suppliers to share type 2 information? You need to talk to them. Okay, so you need to really engage with them and get their questions, because you are talking about not only about yourself but the whole supply chain. Likewise, so what is the single most important thing we can do for next 30 days? Okay, so you can do the dry run. So what if scenarios for your organization? So what does that happen? Then it will tell you, come up with a high level risk process. So you can do that. So how do I measure ROI and risk management? So basically, there is some formula to value at risks. It's a probability of disruption and financial impact. Value at risk is very important. Okay, so sometimes you have a business and then you have a complete dependency on the availability of materials, then it will be a big problem. So you are really allowing your vendor, your competitor to capture the market, and then some of the customers maybe you permanently lose, kind of thing. So there are some few questions like this. So we have 5 more minutes. to talk about what is your biggest mistake you see. How do you handle dual checkpoints? Let us say you have a Hormuz and then you have a Red Sea. So how do you? So this is very tricky questions, but you need to have answers for that. Okay. So what is IMEC corridor, and we should wait. Okay. But India Middle East uh, Europe corridor is something is in a plan. However, by 26, still not not effectively done so far. Nothing. So current status is, so northern corridor is stalled due to regional conflict. There are some risk mitigation strategies across the globe. People are countries tend to do that, but there is not much progress in that so far. Okay. So how is China-US trade war affecting supply chains? This is one of the biggest question every organization have. I think many of you know it already. Okay, so how do you do that? So that is something which you need to really understand. Okay, so oil is above $100 barrel. How does that affect your logistics budget? Okay, so these are some key questions you will have it. So what is your single biggest risk up as of now? Okay, so as of now means when I made this presentation last month. Okay, so April 26, without a question, now, without a question, a combination of Hormuz restrictions and Red Sea escalations. So, what is that? So, how do you do that? So, run a Hormuz closure scenario this week. Assume 30-day complete closure. Which SKUs go out of stock? Which customers are impacted? Build your playbook now, not during the crisis. So, do it now, so that you can do that. So I think that's a primarily my presentation. So what we do in data labs is, so we have a products and solutions, and so we have like a strategy. So we help you to build your business strategy and supply chain alignment for the business strategy. Okay, and we have a tool for fruit strategy for that. Then we have manufacturing execution system. It's a complete supply chain execution systems. So integration with IT and OT, enterprise resource planning, focused on manufacturing. Then we have a logistics management, like warehouse management, transportation management, and control tower. And this control tower is very relevant for subject of discussion today. And all these warehouse management, transportation management, very clearly are part of our overall supply chain risk controls. Okay. If you have any questions, we have 3 4 minutes. Okay.
So two
Uh,
questions are there.
so I'll just pause this. I'll just
Yeah, you can just
I'll stop screen share maybe.
yeah, okay.
Let me see where it is. It visible? I stopped the screen share, right?
Yes, you have stopped, sir.
Okay. Okay. So yeah,
I read it, sir.
yeah. I don't see those questions. Mm.
Actually, Restreams it is not showing, sir, but LinkedIn we got two questions.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's a
You can.
technical glitch, I think.
Yeah, you can read it out a little more.
Yeah, I'll read it, sir. So one question from Faisal Zawuddin, wondering if 1 minute, sir. So is it my voice audible, right?
Yeah, it's audible. Yeah, please.
Wondering if force measure should be captured as a risk by an organization.
Yeah, force measure is definitely a part of risk. Yes. So this is very critical. Actually, that's the reason in your contracts with any vendor or supplier. So force measure is you definitely include it. Okay. Uh, and with the global supply chain risks now, what is happening? Many organizations go out of business. Okay. So for critical components, you need to have force measure um, clause, and it's not only that. Okay, so wherever you have force majeure clause, then you need to have alternate vendor how to do that. So don't stop at only just a contractual obligation, but you need to really have an alternative plan also. That's what the model is all about. It talks about it. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question from Eric Peterson. He's asking, thank for some excellent insight and an elegant framework. Can you speak to how to make a ROI based business case to leadership and why invest in the target technologies? 30% capacity increases, where capacity involves more inventory, staffing, etc.
I know you're basically, if I understand the question correctly, so you are talking about ROI for the technologies. So here, basically, the overall perception of the supply chain has changed. So supply chain is not only low cost or efficiency. It is not only two components. So earlier, when we do a supply chain, I am a supply chain strategist. So when we do the only two things we talk about: cost, responsiveness. Okay. Now there is a third component which is resilience. So you need to have a trade-off between cost, efficiency, or responsiveness, and also resilience. So when you talk about sometimes resilience, okay, so when you talk about resilience, that the ROI is actually, the loss for you as an organization. Okay, so for example, supply chain control tower, and your organization is a middle node in a larger supply chain. You need to have a supply chain control tower to have the visibility of your inventory, orders, capacities across supply chain. You don't actually, if you don't have that, what happens is you don't have visibility in place. So the moment you don't have visibility, so it will be event driven. So there is a risk happening, and then you take actions. But if you have a control tower in place, so you don't have to really worry. The system will throw you what is happening, and that will that itself is your biggest ROI. And some others like analytics kind of thing, like supplier, the information. So these things, you need to have it. So if you don't have, actually you are not really managing your full supply chain properly. So supply chain is not internal supply chain. Yes, it is very important and critical. So have your inventory planning parameters, run your production schedules, manage your customer service levels. This is very, very good. But go beyond your vendor and then tier two, tier three, in your supply chain. Make sure that resilience is something which you need to take up. Now we have witnessed it. We have witnessing this. Every industry has affected by the global supply chain disruption. We have witnessed very heavily during COVID, and then those companies with a very robust supply chain setup, they have succeeded and made fortunes. Similarly, now with the West Asia crisis, you have a same similar opportunity and also a problem. Okay, so investing in supply chain resilience systems and supply chain execution systems is not an option; it's an enabler for you. So the cost, what you put, it should be your part of your operations. That's what I can say. Okay, so and you don't have to invest very heavy, make very heavy investments in the technologies. You made it appropriately, what is required for you. Okay, so don't go fancy things, but it should meet your requirements. That's my question. Okay, so I think if any more questions, Jyoti?
No, sir.
Okay, I think we are done with the today's session. I would like to just summarize. So you have what we have done today in today's discussion is we understand the landscape of supply chain risks. Then we talk about six key levers to understand how to play a critical role in supply chain risk management. Then you have a six-step approach. How do you step 1 to 6 to manage your supply chain risks? And then some templates we talk about. And I shared this presentation also as by in the LinkedIn. I have given a ebook for this, all the topics, whatever you have read. Okay, so I shared a ebook in the LinkedIn. So if you want to read little more, so you can download it and read it. It's free. Okay. So I think one more topic is I would like to thank Frusi team for organizing the event. We conduct global supply chain webinars to share knowledge from experts and other globally. So today I'm lucky to have to share my insights on supply chain risk management with you all. So thank you and have a great weekend. So thank you very much. God bless.